invested in 75 gigawatts of air and solar power, and only invested in 25 gigawatts of hydro. So the government's making the change. Whether or not we want to or not, it's happening. Like they're on the solar and wind power. This 75 gigawatt, that's 3 to 1.
And why not take some of that money and invest it in colleges to find those ideas that would create the types of power that would not rely on hydropower? Why not invest in the college's education for science and technology to come up with better solutions in the future that would balance everything instead of wasting so much money on things that are clearly not completely working?
It's a great idea, but may I report? Okay, so basically for the electrical grid, it's kind of complicated. So for the entire grid, there's all over the western United States, and pretty much power flows back and forth from all the sources that generate power. When you have sources like wind or solar, they're variable power. They don't produce all the time, right? Hydropower produces as long as there's water. Coal, nuclear, and gas, they produce if you have the fuel. But one of the things you need to keep in mind is solar and wind power are variable, and they can't be producing all the time. And when they do produce, it doesn't satiate peak load. You have to have a certain base load, coal maybe, nuclear,
So
hydropower.
balance it out with less usage, find better ways to accommodate. I mean, we're at a point where we're using so much power that we're in danger of destroying the planet simply because of our hunger for power. So if we see the problem and acknowledge it, that's the first step. And then we can go in and try to find real solutions instead of trying to keep the systems we have now by saying, oh, other systems aren't going to work.
I think that's
No.
the current goal. They're not researching to They are trying to find more
Well,
feasible
then
ways to power.
why are people trying to shut down solar power usage and other alternatives as not viable?
But that's like,
Because that's
bureaucratic
bureaucratic
crap.
Yeah, it's
Like,
bureaucratic crap.
No, I'm not agreeing with you. I'm
Yes,
just-
yeah.
I'm saying that people are gonna get their money.
Yeah.
So if someone's making money by fossil fuels, they're gonna lobby to
Exactly.
make sure.
They're gonna
I don't wanna get into a
lobby.
huge like
Yeah.
bureaucratic
That's
bullcrap.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to do that. I'm just saying, how to say it, how to call this. You can't just pull energy out of a hat by putting
No,
money
no.
into schools. Like, it's wishful thinking, and you
It's
can't like.
not
you
wishful
can't-
thinking about putting it in schools, because if you're putting it in schools, you're helping people get
Yeah.
educated enough to
Sure.
try to come up with solutions. I mean, where did the idea for nuclear power come up with? Somebody didn't just pull it out of their butt.
It wasn't, the Manhattan Project wasn't a school, and the turbine wasn't invented in a university, and Nikola Tesla did it
No,
all in
But
somebody's
they all got the
garage.
education.
That's a good point.
I have a question
Tesla-
for,
Nikola Tesla
we
created-
can-
We can argue about
Your
the
name again?
origins of
Craig.
discovery.
Craig, can you guarantee that there will be enough water due to the effects of climate change and further worsening droughts in the region? Can you guarantee that there will be enough water in 100 years to get as much power as we are today?
Is that-
Strike that, because there's gonna be.
Because right
more
now
water.
on the Colorado
Hey,
River.
back up, you don't wanna say that, bro, because there's gonna be more water.
No, it's not how.
No, we're
it's
getting
not how
droughts.
hydrologic
It's the
cycle
eastern half of the
works.
United States.
Right, where's the more
It's
water?
getting too much water.
It's coming from the peaks, everything is melting. There's more water that's going into, do you not know that the
But-
ocean's level is raised?
But it's not how
necessarily be
peaks.
that's
How do they-
going to come from Eastern Oregon,
There's snowpack.
from the Arctic.
If life cycles are changing in the water cycle, we're gonna get less snowpack.
Which means there'd be more water. Because
No.
the-
Well, that's in the river
Yeah,
oceans.
Yeah, but there's
The
still
ocean,
more
yeah.
water.
But he's talking about water coming through the streams.
Yeah, it's less water in the river systems and streams, less groundwater and more
It's still not gonna stop
oceanic.
the raining, no?
It's,
Is it raining?
It will,
Tyler,
if the water's poison enough where it
Please.
can't evaporate.
I'm just saying, you don't wanna go
We
there.
have time to
You don't wanna
read
go there.
hydrologic cycle discussion.
Yeah, go for it. We have until 12:15.
So when you have like this.
Hey, and are we resolving anything?
No, not at all.
I don't think so, no.
We're not at all?
Oh,
Let's get to the more than anthropocentric
So,
stuff.
hey, I got a question. If this, actually, it seems like this problem all boils down to power, right?
Yeah.
a
But we
major factor.
have,
Well, power and navigation.
we have a scientist that he just spoke of, Nikola Tesla, who invented free power. That he had it, he invented it. He invented it, and the technology is there. We have the technology. We just choose not to implement it. We choose not to use it.
I'm not, yeah.
Yes, he did.
We don't really,
He just didn't have his.
That's pseudoscientific, I'm sorry.
yeah, we would need to have a lot greater education to talk about that stuff.
There is, man.
All right, well, it was suggested that there are some, are there, my experience has been that the more than anthropocentric arguments are not easily adapted to this kind of forum, you know? And actually, one of the best insights I had on more than anthropocentric, especially on deep ecology, is somebody described it to me last term as more of a literary movement than a political movement. And so writers like John Muir and Rolston, and they help us articulate something really important and meaningful about how many of us experience the natural world, experience wilderness. But when it comes to presenting those arguments in a forum like this, I don't know. I'm not sure exactly what role they have to play. But obviously they do. I mean, people have reverence for ecological wholes, right? They have reverence for the salmon cycle, and they're concerned about that, and they can't explain that sense of awe just by citing facts and cost-benefit analyses, right? So anyway, somebody want to somebody have some more than anthropocentric arguments that they're proud of, or that they really want to try to work out? And yeah, let's hear them. Let's try to see what would John Muir do at this political hearing?
By the way, I'm Ben, and I'm the coordinator for the more than anthropocentric argument for dam removal, and I am representing the deep ecology movement, the endangered species advocates, and the Leopoldine ecocentrists. And one topic that I heard come up a lot, pretty much the entire time, was community. And it seems like community is so important, and it is. But I think the problem with the anthropocentric argument, coming from the group A conservationist side, is that there exists this dualism where it's the natural community versus the human community, and they've somehow managed to explain away the natural community as being inferior, and that the human community is somehow more adept at preserving and conserving the environment for our needs. But they're not considering the natural perspective. And so we have to look at this. Let's look at the salmon themselves, because that's like the biggest thing in question right now, is removal of the dams to allow the salmon to thrive and exist, and to attempt to simulate their environment as it was. How long was it ago? 60 years ago? Yeah. I think it's still long. It's okay. So one important detail is that salmon are not simple automatons. They are not these, I guess the reference could be like, they're not a computer program. They aren't simply designed to go left when this particular roadblock is in the way, or go right when this other particular roadblock is in the way. They've been shown to show all over rudimentary intelligence, seeking out streams for spawning, and colonizing where best for the survival of their species. And I think this is part of the argument towards seeing the salmon as a life, an existence that has existed and thrived without our interference. And now that we've interfered, suddenly these salmon are so threatened that we have to support them wholly, they are completely reliant on our assistance in order to survive. If we stopped helping them out, spending that $230 million to transport them from one side of the lower snake to the other side, those 4 dams, they would cease to exist at some point. There's no other way to see that scenario play out. And you also have to consider the whole, the ecological whole that these salmon exist in. If we continue to do what we're doing now, eventually these salmon are going to die out, and when they die out, you're not only affecting the salmon species as a whole, or as the salmon species itself, you're interfering with the whole system that is in the Columbia Basin, and because they're a vital part, according to Leopold in his biotic pyramid. And in this biotic pyramid, the salmon exist as a link in this huge chain of all of these different organisms that exist in the environment that are necessary for this cycle that's been going on for thousands and thousands and millions of years. And we, as human beings, have come in, we placed these dams, and we've begun this unknown route. We can't explain exactly what's going to happen if these salmon are gone. We don't currently have any way to see that, but we know that there are going to be some untold consequences for their removal from that ecosystem. And if we go to look at the salmon as being important, having this role in the biotic community, how can we be so cruel as to, and so uninformed about this place, this ecosystem that has existed for so long that we are intruding upon? How can we allow these salmon to die out and to cause these unprecedented events that we can't even explain? We don't even know what's going to happen. And I think the comparison between the lifeboat scenario and the monkey experiment, or the monkey, is really important, because I don't believe this is a lifeboat scenario at all. We're talking about the argument that was made from the Group A conservation side is that if we remove these dams, we must go to a dirty source of energy. And that's not the case. If we look from a Native American perspective, the traditions between the respect between the Native Americans and the salmon, we can see this cycle that has been going on for generations. And this cycle is a good example of the. Sorry, I'm trying to lose myself here.
That's all right. Those ties between culture and nature, is that what you're trying to get at?
Yeah.
That are embodied in those fishing sites,
Yes.
right?
And those fishing sites that have been flooded by the dams and are gone forever and have been changed forever because of, the salmon aren't what they used to be anymore. And we interrupted this tradition and interrupted this natural cycle between in the ecosystem and I think that without that we're missing a vital piece of understanding what it means for these salmon to exist. The grim morality of removing the salmon from existence, and so we're missing that deontic experience, and that deontic experience is, we can't capture it because it's no longer there for us to capture.
Mm-hmm.
Dams have removed our ability to see that perspective. So I think that it's difficult to understand the position that I'm coming from, because from a anthropocentric perspective, because
we lack that insight. We lack that opportunity to see how life continued before we destroyed all of it. So we're unable to see the value, the moral value in the salmon and this ecosystem as a whole.
All right. So perhaps the constraint that we feel tied to anthropocentric arguments is a result of our culture has detached us from this cycle that's so much larger than ourselves. But it also strikes me that you can't talk about the beauty and larger value of that cycle without talking about the human role and involvement in it too. It's interesting. Anyway, let's let our business community. Did you want to respond specifically to how do we deal with these non-anthropocentric arguments?
I think, first of all, I think we regret the loss, and we don't want the salmon to die. We care about the environment. It's not like we hate it, and I think you make some really valid points. But bringing it back to what our argument for a more than holistic, more than anthropocentric view of, let's at least say clean for our sake, that keeping dams will help reduce CO2 emissions for the world. So then I want to kind of perform a thought experiment, if I can, about, let's assume we'll keep the Snake Rivers. Let's assume there are 2 rivers. They each have 1 dam in it. In one dam, there are the salmon. And in the other, for this thought experiment, dolphins live in rivers. In the other, so we have salmon in one and dolphins in another. They both have a dam in them. If the dams from either of them are not removed, that species will be wiped out in the river. We may only remove one. Which is the morally correct choice? To let the salmon die or the dolphins die?
There's a called a pink river dolphin in China that's already gone extinct.
I know. There's one left in the Amazon too.
Yep.
Freshwater. But okay, all right. Well,
I can explain what I was getting at.
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah,
What I'm getting at is, I'm really sorry, I forget which reading we had, but that was talking about life, likes, or there are certain qualities that life and nature finds valuable. It was explaining emotion or intelligence.
Perhaps your
virtue ethics. You're talking about
both Bookchin and Rolston understand evolutionary history as being headed in certain directions, and one heading that they're going in is toward more diversity, intelligence, autonomy, right? And the more advanced animals have more of these types of characteristics. Is that what you're talking about?
Yes, that's it. Yeah, exactly. And I'm wondering dolphins possess that like we do. Is it morally right to say the dolphins over the salmon because of this evolutionary kind of valuing there? So for us, for instance, especially with then I don't know if we can combine it with the double effect.
The doctrine of double effect from natural law theory.
Right. So our salmon, who if they rely mostly on instinct and aren't as intelligent and have these same qualities as us and dolphins do, are we more valuable than salmon to nature?
Do we value dolphins more than the salmon?
I think you're saying because we would value dolphins more than salmon based on like the evolutionary terms of dolphins.
But
And they're not.
If you're gonna get that radical, let's replace dolphins with men and salmon with women. Would you still want the same argument of who you're gonna say, men or women? Because it's just about as ridiculous.
I'd say for men and women, they're both human and equal then. Because
Right,
we're
but
both
if you,
humans.
okay, so if you thought of salmon, if you replace salmon with
a particular type of person, like an indigenous species, and the indigenous species were threats. Yeah. I'm just saying, put that in your thought process, don't.
But
yeah,
didn't
I'm
we
not-
already,
Yeah.
Ben has instructed us, I think wisely and correctly, that we're not dealing with the lifeboat situation here. So, I'm not sure if this lifeboat example is gonna do any work for us. But also, and it's not a lifeboat situation because there's no vital human need at stake in removing these dams. In a lifeboat situation, there's a human life at stake, right? If we don't throw the dog overboard, then we're gonna have to throw one of the humans overboard. There's a real human life at stake of being ended, of being instrumentalized, reduced all the way to a tool, right? But in this case, we are not forced to reduce Mother Earth or any other ecological whole to an instrument if we stop instrumentalizing the Snake River, right? It's not a lifeboat situation.
But what if we destroy the dams, then will it pollute the whole earth? In that kind of argument, like a holistic
It's
sense?
not a valid.
What are
Like a vital need of the earth?
the vital needs of the earth, if it's true? That would be an
Right,
empirical,
exactly.
that would be an empirical question. Is it true that we absolutely have to? And how are we going to answer that conclusively, right? We have to instrumentalize Snake River water resources because if we don't, then the health of Earth will be seriously compromised, right? How would it, I mean, who knows whether that's even, how would we even assess an empirical claim like that? But if that were the case, then we would be facing a lifeboat situation, yes. And then because the Earth is that entity who will be worse off, right?
Right.
The Earth corresponds to one of the humans in the lifeboat. And the Snake River the Snake River watershed corresponds to the dog, right? And in this case, the entity that's going to be worse off would be the Earth, right? And so we're going to throw the Snake River overboard, right? But we're not facing a lifeboat situation, and so all those considerations are moot.
Right, so I think that was our main, more than anthropocentric point that we had, like.
There you go.
We thought it would be better for the earth, but we had some conflicting data. So I
Sure.
at least wanted to say, for our point, let's assume that at least it did that, at least for our sake.
Ben's defense of that more than anthropocentric position was very artful, though. And you know, I mean, I keep reminding you guys that Baxter is your friend, right? Baxter's the guy who first introduced us, and we encountered it in several other places too, but this basic idea that there is no normative nature, right? That whatever we call a healthy ecosystem is going to be something that humans come up with, humans make it up, right? There is no objective healthy nature, right? And there is no objective value in anything other than a human being, right? And so, right, the big metaphysical move, the larger metaphysical move that people informed by Baxter make in response to environmentalists is that environmentalists are making a whole series of questionable metaphysical and ontological commitments. They're talking about things having some objective moral status, and that's just, there's no way to prove that.
Right.
And so let's get back to what we can prove, namely we have these hungry women and children who need jobs, right? And we have human concerns here. And that's what we should measure our policy on, not on some obscure reference to some grandiose story about, you know, the evolution of life.
I see, so Baxter is more about trying to devalue more than anthropocentrism, and then focus more back on anthropocentrism.
Sure, yeah.
Is that?
There is no value without a valuer,
Right,
so we
that
need to
we
cite
are
the
valuers.
valuers to make our resource policies.
What about the value of life in its design? There's things that Harold Mandelbrot came up with, he found fractals, and there's fractals in every single
Oh, sure.
life form.
Yeah.
So that's a design, that's a value right there. Everything
Yes.
has these fractals.
So that beauty and goodness are objectively inherent in the structure of the very structure of the universe.
Yep.
Perhaps the claim is, and so the pro-dam business community could perhaps be accused of just being a little bit metaphysically naive and just kind of crass and vulgar because they're not willing to entertain the possibility that there is this incredibly beautiful, intricate system that's in place here. And when we mess with it, you know, we're throwing all kinds of things out of whack. even though we're benefiting human beings, we're building more shopping malls, more Justin Bieber CDs and all this great stuff, right? Anyway, and so if that's your primary or your sole basis for determining right and wrong, then you're going to decide that the right course of action is the one that benefits the most humans, and then perhaps you're going to summon forth all kinds of physical, empirical evidence to support one claim or the other. But if you accept with Rolston and the objectivists that there is this incredible, I think of I don't know, there is an incredible balance in the universe, and that's what we're violating when we slow down the river the way that we've done, messed up all these properties that together form this incredible whole, right, that has so much beauty. But anyway, so we're out of time. I really appreciate all of your patience, and thank you very much. This was a lot of fun. And thank you.
Who won the argument?
You can't win.
You can't win, yeah.
It was a draw. It was a draw.
They were better prepared by far, so they should probably win.
Yeah, it's time for you guys to take matters into your own hands, I think. Right? No, don't do that.
I don't know.
No self-help.
I don't know.
No radical
We had a-
environmentalist self-help.
We had a group of trainers.